Hello, welcome to the Happy Weight podcast. I'm here with my friend Rebecca Redden, who is a chartered psychologist, certified perinatal mental health specialist. Rebecca, you've got a private practice, Mindful Roots Counselling, and you specialise counselling for the transition to parenthood. So helping moms, helping dads, helping couples in that transition, and also providing training for clinicians who deal with women basically in this area of their life. So welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Aoife. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, excellent. So I just had to talk to you, Rebecca, because a huge percentage of my clients are and always have been moms. Like since the beginning of my career, ladies in their 40s tend to be the bulk of people who need help from a dietitian basically, and that's no surprise because things change around that time, and
so much changes
and you're a mom yourself, and I kind of love that it's the same with the episode with my friend Katrina. She's a pediatric dietitian, and you can learn all the theory in the world, but then it's different when you have your own kids.
The real application of it all.
Yes. So what were the shockers for you becoming a mom? Like, what didn't you anticipate?
Oh, I don't think I anticipated anything, to be honest. I was really thrown into the deep end, and I became a mom before I became a perinatal specialist. So I expected, even though my mom was an OB nurse, I grew up hearing about childbirth. I grew up, it was very normal dinner table conversation. But we found that as we went through pregnancy, as we went through birth, as we went through new motherhood, every day was a shock. It was harder than I expected it to. I didn't know why he wouldn't stop crying. I found myself crying in the closet and not knowing why. I'd be really happy one moment, I'd be sad the next, and I was really just overall confused if I was normal or if this was just what motherhood looked like.
Yes.
Nobody spoke about it, or whether there was something bad or broken or wrong with me.
Yeah, and that was my first question because I suppose it's kind of gaslighting in a way if a mother is constantly told this is normal, this is normal, this is normal. So what's the line? How do we know the line between crying is normal and you might need to go speak to someone?
Such an important question, because I think this is the area where so many women and partners are just confused about, new moms are overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
New moms are stressed. New moms don't sleep.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between normal motherhood and where we have crossed over that line? So there's a couple of important things to know. The first 2 weeks after baby is born, we go through huge hormonal shifts. We call it the hormonal cliff, because your body stops making all the pregnancy hormones. If you're breastfeeding, you're suddenly producing all of these new breastfeeding hormones. There's so much going on hormonally, as well as bringing home a new baby. And so it's really normal. About 80% of new moms experience what's called the baby blues.
Yeah.
This is just, our mood is all over the place. We're happy one minute, we're crying at a dog food commercial the next.
Yeah.
We feel overwhelmed. We might dream or consider what our life would have looked like if we hadn't had kids. We may miss some of that. That's really normal for the first 2 weeks. Anything that persists beyond the 2 weeks, where we are persistently tearful, we're crying all the time, we feel that we can't, even when baby is sleeping, we can't sleep. That's always a really big sign that we want to reach out for help. If we notice that we are anxious and worried all of the time, although new mom worries is a very normal thing, being able to be worried about something and kind of proactively take steps to learn more about it, to talk to someone about it, to consider what we want to do, that's normal. If we get lost and stuck in our worries, that is where we find it's a lot stickier for moms. Same with feeling persistently sad, tearful, overwhelmed, maybe even numb. I just can't feel anything. Yeah. These are all signs that we want to reach out for support.
And I think there's probably a bit of a shame cycle there as well, because so you could judge yourself there. Then I've got clients that their kids are now 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like, geez, I'd want to cop on, you know, I'd want to be out of this now.
Yeah.
And then I also kind of see, you know, maybe things have got a bit chronic sometimes by the time a kid is like, maybe the kids are in like around 12 or that way, because like I've definitely had clients that I think the mothers are so used to feeling so bad for so long.
Yes.
That, you know, you can't help but feel that by the time the child is 12 and maybe, you know, potentially could be quite independent at that stage, the woman is still treating herself like a slave and still not getting sleep and still not minding herself and still not back to who she was before. Well, you probably don't want to go back to who you were before becoming a mom, but you know, some element of your personality and your previous interests coming back.
Absolutely. And we do know that if women don't receive the care and support they need in that early motherhood, not only from friends and family members and partners, but sometimes from a mental health professional or some guidance, coaching, something to acknowledge what motherhood is meant to look like. If we bring these senses of, oh, it's really normal to just be worried all the time. It's really normal to kind of not be able to sleep because I'm worried about kiddo, or it's normal to take on everything and not share that load with anyone. These are the points that can persist. And we know if we don't get the care and treatment, perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, but also challenges in motherhood can persist through a lifetime. Even after our children have left the house, we're still engaging in these patterns of worry, these patterns of overactivated performing.
Yes.
And we think that this is just how we are good mothers.
Yeah, and it's kind of slips into control then, doesn't it? Because as in, you know, I presume with a newborn baby, it's like this is entirely your responsibility and you are absolutely in control. But like if that's still going on once the baby is much older, I mean once the child is much older, that's just a massive burden on someone.
Well, let's think about the societal pressures here. I mean, new moms are told, this is the happiest time of your life. You know, as long as baby is happy and healthy, you're a good mom. If worrying is normal, but you're supposed to sacrifice yourself for your baby. This is what mothering is. And then there's that mental load or invisible load that is put squarely on the shoulder of moms and women in general, that we say, okay, you know, it's your job to make sure that the baby is cared for. It is your job to make sure that the house is clean. It is your job to make sure that, we know when the doctor's appointments are and when they need more nappies and when they need to feed and when they need everything. That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And especially in our modern world where there are so many other pieces to track, women are shocked that they feel exhausted, overwhelmed, drained. And one of the most common things I do is just normalize. Of course you feel that way. Look at everything that's on your plate.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable to carry all of that all of the time. Let's work on getting some of those things off of your plate and getting you the support you need.
And I imagine that really helps, just kind of like acknowledging it, compassion. You're not lacking, you're not deficient in any way of anything. And that, you know, that's quite proactive as well in terms of, because it's the same with my clients, and you know, it ears into some of this, that it's like thoughts alone can't change everything. Like you can't just keep reframing things. Sometimes you just need someone to take the kids for an hour or two. Like there's no other way around it, you know. It's like taking an action or making a change in the week.
And the most common thing I persistently see in my office is that guilt. The intense guilt of, I shouldn't be asking for help. I should be able to do this on my own. If I ask for help or need my mom to watch the kids or ask for a childminder to come or someone to help so that I can take a nap or shower or go for a walk or read a book that I like that makes me remember who I am, that somehow we're failing. in motherhood.
Yeah.
And if we can recognize that old adage of it takes a village, it doesn't just take a village to support and raise a child. It takes a village to support and raise a mother.
Yeah.
We know that mothers were never intended to do this alone.
Yeah.
We look back at human history. It was the village, it was the tribe, it was the community. Baby was passed from person to person. They were cared for by multiple adults.
Yeah.
Other older children. They were often breastfed by multiple people. There was so much support that was just inherent in the process.
Yeah.
We don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
And so a huge piece that I'm constantly doing with my clients is activating their support systems, giving permission to ask for the support they need, and helping them figure out how to ask for that support. Setting boundaries with people to say, that's something I'm not going to do anymore. I'm going to take that off my plate, or you need to take that on so that I can do all of the other things that I need to be doing right now.
Yeah, because you're an individual and you have your own limits. And like, I noticed my sister's really good with all of that. Like, she's really good at like, I really like to think she doesn't compare herself too much. So like, you know, she has a time where her and her husband go to the gym on a Saturday and stuff, and it's like those 2 hours can like change the entire weekend, you know what I mean? And I suppose it's you knowing your own limits. And what you were saying there, I'm like just thinking, like, you know, I was born in 86, and I suppose I had a bit of the typical Irish childhood that like we were just kind of plonked down in Nana's, and like Nana would be sitting by the fire and she'd keep an eye on us, you know, we'd be crawling around, but it would just be someone to keep an eye. And you know, just even when you think about like burnout and stuff, if Nana had us for a few hours and then Mam had us for a few hours, like God love Mam though, she still had to do loads, but like there's less likelihood of massive irritation if someone doesn't have to do it all 24 hours a day.
Yes. Oh, that and the expectation. I mean, we look at the constant messages moms are receiving that they have to be everything to everyone all the time.
And hot.
Yes.
At all times.
Yes.
Like,
with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
And I think if we could break apart anything, any really negatively impactful belief is this idea that we have to be 100% all the time, especially as moms, or else somehow we are failing our children. I also think about with social media, with the impact of seeing the perfect picture on social media, there's this idea that somehow I'm supposed to match this perfect picture on Instagram constantly.
Yeah.
Which is not realistic. We know how cultivated and created so much of that is, but then comparison becomes a major challenge. We know that comparison is really normal in new motherhood. It's something we haven't done before, so we are comparing ourselves to others to see, am I doing this right?
Yeah, in other countries, other climates, like other pay scales, like
100%.
Everything.
And then, and so some of that is really normal to look, okay, am I doing this well? What happens with social media and social expectations is that we end up just not having a realistic bar to meet. And then again comes the guilt, the embarrassment, the shame, the feelings of failure. And I would say the biggest piece that I do with clients when they come in is break apart those messages. Where did that come from? Yeah. Do you believe that?
Exactly, because it's kind of like we could be shooting all over or something, and then when we check it out with ourselves, it's like, that's not even my value system actually. Like bringing a child, like, you know, I don't know, interrailing or something, that's not actually on my to-do list. I don't need to feel guilty that I'm not doing that, or, you know, whatever silly thing it could be. I think there could be a trap there of like automatic guilt or something, or
well, and these things that maybe we didn't even consider as part of motherhood. Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to be making all of my baby food from scratch, that I was supposed to be matching their developmental milestones down to the T. If I wasn't doing exactly everything on time perfectly, my child's not walking yet at a year, 18 months. oh, I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And because we often as moms take so much responsibility, if something doesn't go well, if it doesn't go as expected, there's the blame on ourselves.
Yes.
Not only from ourselves, but often from others.
Yeah, exactly.
We hear those messages of, oh, she should be doing this, mom should be doing that. Whereas there's no sharing or recognition that it's the whole family support system, as well as the individual pieces of the child.
Yeah.
That are going to make sleep hard, or feeding hard, or they're going to develop at their own pace.
Yes.
There's very little permission and flexibility for moms and motherhood.
Yeah, and what do you think that, like, you come across the most often? Like, what piece of advice do you feel nearly needs to be said to every mom you work with?
Yes. So one of the things that I talk about all the time with my clients that I think has been across the decade plus of working with moms, the most consistently beneficial is the recognition that self-care is something we often think about, like dessert after dinner. Once I eat all my vegetables, once I clear my plate, then I can have dessert. And then I can do this nice thing for myself. And we can definitely have a conversation about how self-care has been a bit hijacked. Spa days and paying a whole bunch of money. And, you know, rather than being sleep and food and water and caring for ourselves, going for a walk, taking a couple of deep breaths, doing something that makes us feel like ourselves.
You're so right, because it could be like that you spend 300 or 500 euro every 3 months or once a year to meet your school friends or your uni girls or whatever, you know, and yet again, you're just a slave unless there's one of those weekends coming up.
You do nothing else for yourself in between those. So we often think about self-care this way, and I really focus on switching the mindset to self-care being like putting petrol in your car. If I have a load of errands to do during the day, the first thing I do is put petrol in my car.
Oh, that's nice.
I make sure that I have the energy, the fuel, to be able to mind my baby, to be able to run the errands, to be able to be kind of emotionally attuned and smiling and happy for baby, to be able to do the things that are important to me.
Yeah.
So if we can focus on putting the petrol in the tank first, then we not only have the energy to be able to do all the things we want to, but we're not running on empty with range anxiety of how am I going to get to the end of the day because I'm, you know, the needle's on empty. I find consistently, if we can think about, okay, I have a big piece that I need to do. I have a busy day. I have a lot on my plate.
But first,
I need to put petrol in my tank.
Yeah, that's so good because, like, I suppose what I'd come across the most is that, you know, someone is just wiped out by the end of the day. Done everything for everyone, you know, done the house, kids, husband, maybe work. Like, just so many things, nothing really for themselves, no real checking in on their mood, or maybe their mood was down and, you know, they kind of settled for it all day. They kind of, like, they're used to settling for that, like, low ebb now.
Yes.
And then, you know, I just kind of think it's inevitable then, you know, if we have any tendencies with food at all, that, like, okay, well, you know, the kids are gone to bed now. I can have all this, like, vegetable oil and sugar or refined sugars or whatever. And, like, kind of then when people want to, because sometimes I come across it, like, I come across it quite often actually, people almost want to keep their life the same. They want to keep everything the same. They just don't want to do that eating in the evening. And I'm kind of more like, that's like, you've one bit of scaffolding. That's your one bit of scaffolding that you're allowing yourself. Are you sure you want to remove that? Because like that's kind of not the point. Like, you know, and also it's like comfort eating is us seeking for comfort. So it's like, you know, that's what I wish people knew, that it's like, you don't need to shop around nutrition plans. Like, if you're comfort eating or emotional eating, comfort is what's missing in your day. Like, how comfortable were you today? How comfortable have you been this week? How many memorable things have you done for yourself? How many fulfilling things have you done for yourself? Because if they're not there, I think it's handy to almost just expect, like, say I was a binge eater and I don't think I'm fundamentally a different person. I just have changed my environment. I've changed my triggers. I maybe don't hand over my mood to randomers now like I used to. Like I used to get upset about a lot of things. I used to let like someone cutting you out in traffic piss me off. I used to let a lot of things derail my day and derail my mood. And I also had my day set up to fail, like overworking and stuff like that. So I haven't changed as a person at all, but my day is more conducive to me being able to mind myself. And I know that's easy for me to say, I'm not a mom, but I still think it has some similarity maybe,
Absolutely. The piece of restructuring, we enter into motherhood with this expectation of what it's going to look like, and then very often realize that's not sustainable. That's not keeping me going. We have two options. We can either just push through and say, well, this is just what it is and I have to keep going, which we know can lead to stress, parental burnout, resentment in our relationships, anger with ourselves, guilt and shame and frustration when we can't meet those unrealistic expectations. Yeah. Or we can say, this is not sustainable. What needs to change in order for me to make it more sustainable? That is activating your support system, setting yourself up for success. Maybe checking some of those expectations, which things need to temporarily or long-term come off the list so that you can focus on the things that are really important to you. Yeah. One of the things that I have a lot of my clients do is to write themselves a job description for motherhood.
Oh, cool.
So we go into a new job. There's very clear, this is what success looks like. This is what you're expected to do. This is what you're not expected to do. There's a lot of clarity. We don't have that in motherhood. We don't have any idea
what I will be doing. Like, what are your responsibilities, what are not?
Exactly. And what are the things that need to be prioritized on a day when you have nothing in the tank? You are exhausted. What's most important? Is it minding yourself? Is it caring for baby? It doesn't matter if the house is a mess or the dishes aren't done or, you said no to a friend who is going to come over because you just don't have the energy, or maybe it's your mother-in-law that's coming over and you don't have the energy for that. If we can identify what we need to prioritize, it's so much easier to give ourselves the permission to do that.
Yeah. And has there ever been a shout you've made that you were actually quite proud of? That you interjected into your day and you were like, do you know what? I'm going to do this. Like, do you have any kind of because I know that's the whole weird thing with self-care. It can be minor. It can be like, you know what? I'm going to take the longer way and stop at that Starbucks. Or it can be teeny things.
And it often is. The sustainable stuff is small. The holiday is great, but we can't go on a holiday every week. Yeah. It is taking the couple of moments for some deep breaths. It is taking the couple of moments for us, putting baby down somewhere safe or having them with someone so that we can mind ourselves for a minute and refill our tank. Yeah. I think the biggest moment for me when I realized this was my son was about 3 and we were having an awful time with bedtime. He had moved into the toddler bed and discovered he could get out of it on his own. Delighted with life. This is great.
An adventure every night for him.
And so he was in and out, it was constant. And I just found myself getting so overwhelmed. It was the end of the day. I was exhausted. I had nothing left in the tank to give. And here I was trying to compassionately put him back into bed over and over. And I just felt this rage and anger and frustration. And I'm sitting there pulling my hair out. And I just kept pushing through every night. We would just do it over and over and over. And I remember sitting on the floor of my bedroom in bits, tears. I'm an awful mother because I can't do this. And here I am, instead of just compassionately with a smile, putting him back in bed.
Yeah, basically being a robot, being an AI mom or something. Yeah.
And I realized, wait a second. At that point, my husband was working evenings, so I had him all on my own for the evening. We were constantly, carrying bath, bed, preparing for the evening, spending time together, playing. There was not a moment of break between when I got home from work and when I put him to bed. No wonder I was exhausted. And so I gave myself the permission to give him a bit of time for independent play, oftentimes a bit of television, so that I could take 20 to 30 minutes. I made myself a cup of tea, I had a snack, I prepared myself for the evening, and it made a world of difference. He still came in and out of the bed a million times. That was still absolutely going on.
Yeah.
But I felt so much more capable of being able to manage that because I had some petrol in my tank, and that was mind altering for me.
Yeah, that is huge. And that's the thing, because even when you said there that like even about TV, I'd say moms give themselves a hard time with that. I have some buddies that they grew up with, I think, plenty of TV and they all turned out okay. They turned out fine. And I know social media is a different kettle of fish, and so are reels and stuff like that. But the other thing is that I suppose from my experience as well, my mom definitely had it hard. She was a pharmacist, she had 5 kids, and it was in a time where lads literally had to do nothing at all. And, my takeout from that, if I'm ever a mom, would be that, I think giving your kid pot noodle is better than getting dinner from a martyr, because I don't think people realize that kids sense stuff from a really young age. Absolutely. And even if you're a really young kid, you don't want to be under compliment. It's a horrible feeling to be a burden and to be under compliment, and there being an air in the house, just of ugh, you needed your dinner or whatever. So I honestly think, what would be so wrong with whatever crappy dinner sometimes and a happy mom and a happy house? I think that's honestly more valuable and more safety for the kid.
And if you look at net benefit there, the kind of potential negative impact of a pot noodle or television or whatever activity we think we quote unquote shouldn't do, the potential negative of that versus the positive of then being able to be attuned, be engaged, be our best selves with our kids. There's this huge misconception that our kids need us to be present 100% of the time. That they need us to be with them all of the time. They need us to be tuned in 100% of the time. Luckily, the research does not support this. They need us to be present and engaged about 50% of the time.
Well, that's probably more manageable.
And some parents are going to say, I want to hang out more in the 60-70 range, but knowing that 50% is really what our kids need from us gives, again, the permission. It's okay if I go make myself a cup of tea, take a couple of deep breaths, sit out in the sunshine, and then come back to them feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, and ready to be really there for them.
And I suppose equally it's kind of what's it teaching the kid? Because, are you teaching the kid then that you should just go around the world and it's all take from you? And even when you feel like stop, you give. Yeah. It's kind of that's not a great message. And I do think it's really thankless, because when I do deal with moms that treat themselves like absolute slaves, I don't really see any increased respect from the kids or from the partner. It generally tends to be the opposite. Yes. So I kind of think, I imagine that might be a motivating factor as well, maybe, that no one wants that version of us, Well,
and that piece around boundaries and setting realistic boundaries for ourselves around what we'll do, what we won't do, how much we'll give, how much we won't give, does increase respect. Really what we're doing is we're setting the expectations of how much we will be available. If we are available 125% of the time, the expectation is going to be that we're going to be available 125% of the time. And then when we are only available 95%, of course our families are going to wonder, what's wrong? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you making me, all of the snacks and keeping the house clean and doing all of these things? Because the expectation has been set. And I do see this in my couples work quite a bit, where we recognize the system isn't sustainable. and we say, okay, we're going to have, say, mom pull back and do less. And there is some pushback from partners saying, but wait, this has always been, the dinner's always been on the table, the house has always been clean, but how are we supposed to manage this?
Oh, God.
Because we're changing the relationship contract.
Yeah. And changing boundaries is never going to be perfect initially. Like, it has to be a bit, like, all over the place. Any of us setting any boundaries has to be a bit like we're just doing our best at the start. It's not going to be slick.
And and it's best to expect that there will be pushback on those boundaries. When you say, I'm not going to do this anymore, or this is now your responsibility, there is going to be pushback. But that doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that that's not okay.
Yeah.
One of the things I talk about with my clients and my couples who come in during pregnancy or before they engage in that transition to parenthood, which is always lovely, is how can we set the expectations beforehand?
Yes.
What is dad going to be doing? What is mom going to be doing? How are both of you going to get the sleep that you need? How are both of you going to support each other? How are you going to support each other's self-care rather than it only feeling one way? And that helps it feel so much easier to just step into, make adjustments as needed, rather than having to create something completely new. But even if we step into motherhood and we're like, wait a second, this is not what I expected. Or we've been a mom for 4, 5, 12 years and this is how it's been, we still can change that relationship contract. We can still say, this is no longer sustainable. I need to make these changes. Come along with me. We'll reorganize things. And not only is the relationship going to feel better, there's going to be more respect. There's going to be more capacity for positive relationship because we're not exhausted all of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's real net benefit.
Yeah, and like this is so sad because it's really making me think of one client I had, and she was really giving like 120% to everyone, like really honestly treated herself like a slave. And then on top of it, her partner, her husband, and her own parents kept commenting on her weight. And I kind of think that like this is kind of like related, not related, but I think that's a very, very important boundary, kids or no kids, that like your weight is not up for discussion. Like your weight is not up for discussion with anyone unless a professional. And the same with your eating, the same with like little naggy comments like, wouldn't a walk be nice or whatever. Like, I think all that shit has to be closed down.
Yes.
And, even just from the kind of woo-woo mentality of let's practice who we're becoming. And someone without a weight problem would not be spoken down to.
Yes.
They wouldn't, about their weight, I mean. They would not, like, every Tom, Dick and Harry wouldn't feel that they have a right to give advice.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Or comment. And it's like, that has to go. Because I think there's an awful thing that happens when we're down about our own weight. We'll take the punishment. Like, we'll take the insights or the comments or whatever, and we'll slightly think that we deserve it. And now I think we need to come from a more empowered place of like, what would this be like if it was sorted out? Like, I would not be up for these conversations. Like, this would not be on the table,
Absolutely. I think that, when we're talking about weight and body size, but also the extra layer of motherhood, there just seems to be this social permission to comment, to give advice, that it's almost seen as this positive thing. Oh, if I tell you my tips and tricks for losing weight after baby's born, or, oh, geez, I was back to my pre-baby weight, by the time baby was 6 weeks old, which is ridiculous. Let's just acknowledge it's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. Or I didn't put on any weight when I was pregnant. I don't know, what's going on for you. You have to cut back on the snacks there. Babe,
the worst,
you're not eating for
inappropriate
2.
advice.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And there just seems to be this permission to comment on mothering in general, but also our bodies during this time.
And I think we have to take accountability for that. I think every woman needs to take accountability for not supporting those conversations by how they act themselves.
Absolutely.
Like, just not playing ball with that, because I think like we as women can blame a lot of things, but ultimately we're the ones keeping the problem alive. We're the ones keeping the judgment alive. If we're having those conversations, like guys are not having those conversations about women, I wouldn't say, but women can have them in depth.
I absolutely hear from my clients that they are hearing these comments from parents and mothers-in-laws, aunts, cousins, oftentimes even friends, sometimes well-intending friends of, oh, this is what I did to lose weight after baby was born, or geez, I breastfed and the weight just fell off. And there's these comments either in commenting about their body or making these kind of flippant comments of, oh, it was easy for me, knowing that it's such a complex challenge.
Exactly.
And each body is different.
Yeah.
Each person's journey is different. There are so many factors that are part of that. And we are really developing an entirely new relationship with our body through this whole process anyway.
Yeah.
We don't need comments.
Exactly. And it just, every stage of our life with our body and our eating, it's kind of like, because I think for myself anyway, once you're fixed, it's entirely uninteresting what other people eat. Just like it's entirely uninteresting when people need to go to the loo. Like as in, that's your body function. It's got nothing to do with me. If I need 2 dinners and no dessert and you need half a dinner and 2 desserts, we're really different people. It's literally, there's no point even chatting about it. And so, and then another thing, Rebecca, comes up quite often is, it's tough because I kind of feel that like, I don't know, is anyone to blame in this situation, but something that comes up a lot, right, is that the house could be burning down and the husband will go out for a cycle. And sometimes I get the feeling that maybe there's 2 people in that situation, because I get the impression that men work on more of a basis. I presume if this was a problem, you'd tell me, and I presume if you wanted to go out for a cycle, you'd be going out for a cycle right now. And then as women, I suppose there's all the like guilt and responsibility that I do a better job taking care of the kid anyway, so maybe I shouldn't go to my exercise class because maybe it would just be easier if I stayed at home. And all of that stuff. So you must come across that as well.
All the time. And there are a lot of layers to that. It's really complex. There are societally very different expectations of mothers and fathers. So the expectations that each individual goes into parenthood is often very different. Mothers might have that sense of, okay, this is my new job, my new life. This is, baby comes first. We're going to support baby and growth and really find themselves very focused on baby care. Dads are often seen as this support or ancillary. They support mom in supporting baby rather than being a direct support to baby. Now, we are seeing a shift toward dads being more involved, which is a really lovely thing. But instead of it being often directly taking the responsibility, it's a tell me what you want me to do.
Yes. Yeah. And people get really annoyed. Like, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say divorces happen because of that.
We do know that the highest rates of divorces in relationships is after baby's born, and then just closely followed by the adolescence years because of the stresses. Our relationship changes completely when we become parents. We shift from being partners to being parents and partners, and that's a big shift. The biggest point of contention that I see is our expectation of our partners. So we often expect, we build up these expectations of what kind of parent our partner is going to be once baby is born. And it's something we don't usually talk about. Moms might expect that dads are going to step in and be really active and engaged and proactive. And dads might expect that moms are going to handle all of the things because that's maybe how their own moms managed it, their own families managed it. But we don't talk about it. Then baby arrives. We're playing out our own expectations, which might not match the expectations we have of each other. And then the space between the expectation and the reality
is a shocker, I'd imagine.
And is where resentment grows. but we still don't talk about it.
Yeah.
We sit in and fester in that resentment.
And it should be like, and it isn't.
Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes we aren't talking about that discrepancy. We're just really upset about it every time one partner goes out for a cycle or the other doesn't do the dishes or whatever the expectation is. We're not talking about it. We're not addressing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just builds and builds and builds. Leads to arguments about something else rather than, oh, I need more support here, or this was not what I expected it to look like. And then that's what leads to the increased rates of divorce. What we can do about that is, one, talk about it. We want to discuss what our expectations are. Best case scenarios before baby arrives, what are your expectations of me as dad? What are your expectations of me as mom? Setting the ground rules for that.
That might be even something before you get married. Do you know what
lovely.
I mean? Because imagine if the guy was like, well, you'll be doing everything,
And there are definitely partners who enter into parenthood with the expectation of, I'll support you, but you're going to mind the children, because that's the framework that they're coming into that with. Mm-hmm. And it can be a real shocker when their partner comes and says, wait, I need you to change nappies, and I need you to mind the child, and I need you to do all the things and be an equal partner. Yeah. If it's not discussed beforehand, it can be a real point of tension.
Yeah.
So best is to have this conversation early on before baby arrives. But a lot of times there is that mental load component. There's just this assumption that women are going to take on the mental load.
Yep.
And partners and dads will often just say, let me know what you need me to do. I'm happy to help. Let me know. Without the recognition that that's actually a ton of work.
Yes.
A ton of work to plan and think through and kind of be able to recognize something.
You're juggling so much stuff. Yeah.
So what's actually helpful is to sit down and identify. I'm a big fan of couples meetings. So sitting down once a week, planning out the week together. Okay, you're going to handle this. You're going to think through this. We're going to work on this piece together. These are my jobs. Those are your jobs. This is how we're going to navigate the visit from your mother or whatever it is.
Yep.
And then you each have your own jobs, and it is each individual's job to make sure they get their own jobs done.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's very clean.
It's very easy, I think, as women to check on our partners. Did you get that done? Mm-hmm. Did you finish it?
Yeah.
Because we're so used to taking on the responsibility for that.
Which is kind of earing into control versus trust. And I kind of think that that's such a trap as well, because being trusted is the loveliest feeling, and being trusted is what inspires confidence. And even, when my clients do kind of go out for their run or whatever, and the dad is happy to take care of the kids. So it was only the mom kind of being like, maybe I shouldn't go. Yeah. But it's that's giving the dad an opportunity to be confident, and that's, because the dad trusts himself to be able to mind the kids. So sometimes it's just the mom being able to trust that, you'll do as good a job-ish as I will if I leave for an hour or two.
Yes. And especially when there's a bit of maybe anxieties or worries on board, where there's worries about baby or baby care, moms can take over a lot of the baby care because they want it done a certain way. There can be an element of, I want to feel in control, or maybe I'm just really worried about it being done wrong. The message this often sends to dad is, you're not trusted, you're not capable.
Exactly.
They then see a significant drop in confidence. Yeah. And so they just assume, okay, well, mom is so much better at this, I'm going to let her do it. To the point where, they're asking questions about changing a nappy or which foods to feed kiddo. What are they eating now? They're not involved or engaged. Even if they might know the answer.
They have no confidence.
Because they aren't confident in being the driver of that. Gee. This is exhausting for everyone on board. Yeah. And we actually see that lack of confidence is a huge driver for things like postpartum depression and anxiety in partners and men, which about 10% of partners and men experience postpartum anxiety or depression. So that not feeling trusted does have a big impact on man as well. One of the best things we can do for the entire family system is to share those responsibilities. Mom feels the lightening of that weight and the permission to say, okay, I'm going to go care for myself. Dad gets the benefit of the confidence and the connection with kiddo that benefits not only the child, but dad as well.
And the learning curve. And also, I suppose it's one of those situations, again, that like, let's weigh up what I'm really scared of here. Because I think, to be honest, it's hard to get a nappy wrong. Like, those sticky bits are very sticky. So, like, you know.
And even if you do, it's not a big deal.
It's not.
You have a bit of a mess, you clean it up and you do it again.
Yeah, so it's probably worth the risk. And Rebecca, 2 last questions. First one, you know, so you work individually with moms, you work with couples, you know, and then you also kind of train clinicians and people who work closely with mothers and couples. And like, what advice really irks you that's out there that you hear, you know, because it's the same in my profession, you hear maybe very well-meaning nurses and doctors and everything, but who also don't have the education in the area. You have the education and, you know, giving advice that's then well-respected advice, but way off. So what one comes up often?
Oh, I could spend an hour talking about that in general. There are so many, again, really well-intended, and they really run the gambit. You know, I've had the number of parents I've had go into their GP or talk to a lactation consultant, describe that they're really struggling, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're tearful, they're really worried about baby, they're having trouble sleeping. And the advice they get, or the message that they get is, oh yeah, motherhood is hard, it's tough for everyone. And this minimization of
all of those things.
I think that speaks more to this wider societal expectation that, oh, mothering is hard, but no clear definition of where that line is. Yeah, being worried about your baby sometimes, normal. Being worried all the time so you can't sleep, needing support.
Yeah.
All the way from that to the advice of things like sleep when the baby sleeps. We hear that all the time.
Do you know what? I actually said it to a client the other day, and the minute the words came out of my mouth, I knew it was wrong.
Yes.
And the poor woman actually started crying.
Yes.
You know, I was like, it was so odd. Like, sometimes I get an instinct to say things, but I think I got that instinct in order to trigger her, like in order to bring up what we needed to actually chat about, which is that she's not sleeping. Yeah.
And this idea that somehow I just can magically put everything aside really negates and minimizes all of the things that moms are trying to do. And there's, you know, who's going to wash the pump parts? Who's going to, you know, mind the other children? Who's going to, you know, take a moment for herself in the midst of that?
It's a lovely theory, you know.
And okay, if you're going to sleep when the baby sleeps, who's going to do all of the other things? We can't expect women just to take that on without actually supporting that. And it really reinforces this message of, you're supposed to just manage it on your own. You just fit everything in somehow. Sleep when the baby sleeps and also get all the other things done when the baby's awake.
Sleep loads, be super present with your baby, and then do everything else too. It's only 24 hours, you know what I mean? Like, that's a mad expectation.
And yeah, this is something we hear all the time. It's so kind of commonly, colloquially said as, oh, what advice do you give a new mom? Sleep when the baby sleeps. Without the recognition that that's not helpful in any way.
Yeah. And it's not like they haven't heard it.
No.
Do you know?
And, you know, I've seen some very funny videos of that, sleep when the baby sleeps, and, you know, the mom's walking the pram in the park and the baby falls asleep and they fall asleep on the ground.
Yes, I've seen them. Like, or a toddler throwing toys at your head or something. Like, my goodness. And then, Rebecca, how can people find you?
100%. So a couple of different ways. If individuals are looking for support in that transition to parenthood, and I do support everything between fertility challenges, pregnancy, birth, grief and loss, that postnatal period, and then parenting. So anything in that realm, if you're looking for counseling support, you can find information about me on my website, mindfulrootscounseling.com. If you are a perinatal provider and you're supporting people within this period, which so needed, it's the Perinatal Mental Health Institute, which I created because I recognized there was just not enough accurate, evidence-based, and compassionate information around that transition to parenthood for providers, and they were giving unintentioned, really bad advice and really poor support, not really meeting the needs of mothers in that. And so we've got a big training coming up, launching here in September. So excited about that, as well as a community that you can join to get connected with other perinatal providers and have access to ongoing education in this area. So there's a lot of exciting things coming down the pipe.
That is excellent. Rebecca, thanks so much for talking to me today. I really enjoyed that. I said before we pressed record, I was like, sometimes, you know, it like goes in 5 minutes, so we could be talking for 3 hours. This is definitely one of those situations. But thanks so much.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and I hope anyone listening to this, that what Rebecca is saying is kind of ringing bells with you. I hope you do reach out for help. There's support out there. So thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode.